Okay, today's lesson is lesson number 57. We're going to be solving 3 variable word problems. Okay, so these are going to be systems of 3 equations, so very similar to the word problems that we did last week with 2 variables and 2 equations. Okay, except that now we're going to use the 3 variable systems that we have been working with for the past couple of days. Alright, so here's our first example. Again, we're going to start by reading through the whole word problem. So this says, last Tuesday, Regal Cinemas sold a total of 8,500 movie tickets. Proceeds totaled $64,600. Tickets can be bought in one of 3 ways. A matinee admission costs $5. Student admission is $6 all day. And regular admissions are $8.50. How many of each type of ticket was sold if twice as many student tickets were sold as matinee tickets? Alright, so looking at this problem, we can see the 3 things that it wants us to find are the number of each type of ticket. Okay, so the number of student tickets, the number of matinee tickets, and the number of regular admission tickets. Okay, so we will highlight those items here. We're going to let these be our variables then. So we'll let M be the number of matinee tickets. Then let S be the number of student tickets. And let R be the number of regular admission tickets. Alright, so then we want to try to pull out the important information from this problem in order to create 3 equations, right? When we have 3 variables, we need 3 equations. So the first sentence says that they sold a total of 8,500 movie tickets, okay, or 8,500. So if that's the total that they sold, we know that the number of matinee plus the number of student tickets plus the number of regular student ticket, the number of regular tickets. If we add those together, we must get 8,500. So we'll set that as our first equation. So we have M plus S plus R equals 8,500. Okay, so that's our first equation. Now, looking at the second sentence, it says that the proceeds, so the money that they earned, totaled $64,600. So we're looking at the amount of money they earned. We need to think of how much money they got for each type of ticket. So they got $5 for each matinee ticket. So if they sold 5 matinee tickets, they would have gotten $25. Okay, so using those numbers, we can create the following equation. Okay, so if we take 5 times the number of matinee tickets plus $6 times the number of student tickets plus $8.50 times the number of regular tickets, that total should give us our grand total of $64,600. Okay, so we have 2 equations, but we have 3 variables, so we need to look for our third equation. We've used all of the information from the beginning sentences. We just have the last sentence left. So how many of each type of ticket was sold if twice as many student tickets were sold as matinee tickets? Twice as many student tickets were sold tells us that the number of student tickets sold is going to be greater. So our equation using that information is going to look like S equals 2M. Okay, so whatever the number of matinee tickets is that they sold, I'm going to double it, right? I'm going to multiply it by 2 to get the number of student tickets. So if they sold 10 matinee tickets, they must have sold 20 student tickets. Okay, so now I'm going to use this equation. I see that I have one of my variables already sort of solved for, so I'm going to plug that in. If I plug in 2M for S in the top 2 equations, I'll be able to create a system of 2 equations in 2 variables, right? That S is going to go away, and I'll just have M and R. So rewriting those now below, I'm going to plug in 2M for S in the top equation. So I have M plus 2M plus R equals 8,500. and in the bottom equation. So I have 5m plus 6 times 2m plus 8.50r equals 64,600. Okay, so now combining like terms in each of these equations, I'm going to simplify them. So I'll get 3m plus r equals 8,500 on the first equation. And then 6 times 2 right here, that'll give me 12. So plus 5, I'll have 17m plus 8.50r equals, and 8.5 is the same as 8.50, so I can just write it that way. And that's going to equal 64,600. Okay. Now that I have these two equations, I could use elimination to solve for each of the variables. But I see that these numbers are not super friendly to work with, so instead of doing that, I'm actually going to use Desmos to graph these and find my solution that way. So I'm going to replace m with x and r with y, right, on Desmos so that it understands what I'm saying. And I'll be able to get those two values. So let's go over to Desmos now. Okay, so this is what it looks like on Desmos when I plug in these two equations. I had to zoom out a lot. You'll notice there's some really big numbers here, right? So I had to zoom out a lot in order to see the lines. And when I clicked on their intersection, I found that they intersected at 900, 5,800. So that tells us that my x equals 900 and y equals 5,800. Okay, but remember our x was really just m from the equations we created, and y is really just r. And then we also had that one equation that looked like s equals 2m. So plugging in m equals 900 here, I get s equals 2 times 900, which is 1,800. Okay, so in words, I can say my answer, right? I could give an answer in complete sentences. I would say they sold 900 matinee tickets, 1,800 student tickets, and 5,800 regular tickets at Regal Cinemas last Tuesday. Okay? Okay, so then if you were in class, the next thing that we did was this 4-problem activity. So we were in groups, and with your group you solved one of these word problems. I'm just going to go ahead and go over the correct equations and solutions again. So for number 1, it was talking about this big amphitheater, and there's 3 different sections. They charge a different price for each section, and there's a total number of seats and a total income that they earn. So the 3 equations that we would get from this, the first one is if I add the number of seats together, so the number of seats in each section, I get the total number of seats, which is 23,000. Okay, and then if I think about the price per ticket and I multiply that by the number of seats in each section and then add them together, I get this equation, right, which is 75 times A plus 55 times B plus 30 times C equals, equals the total income, which is $870,000. Okay, so those are my 2 equations. The third equation comes from where it says there are 3 times as many seats in section in section B as in section A. So that gives us B equals 3A as a third equation. Solving those, you could solve by substituting in the B equals 3A into the 2 equations. Then you would just have 2 equations in A and C. Or there are other ways to solve as well, but you would get A equals 1,500, B equals 4,500, and C equals 17,000. Okay, the next problem was talking about money. So there was some information here that you would need to know that's not given. So for instance, you need to know that a quarter is worth 25 cents, a nickel is worth 5, and a penny is worth 1. So first you're given the total number of coins, okay? So the number of quarters plus the number of nickels plus the number of pennies has to equal 11 coins. Then if you think about what each of these is worth, you can come up with another equation. So I multiplied through by 100 here so that I wouldn't have the decimals. So thinking if I have 25 cents times the number of quarters plus 5 cents times the number of nickels plus 1 cent times the number of pennies, I'll end up with 127 cents, right? So I thought of it in that way with the number of cents so that I wouldn't have to deal with the decimal. Okay, and then the last equations you get from where it says he has twice as many quarters as pennies. So that gives you Q equals 2P. Solving for each of those, you get Q, N, and P. Q equals 4, N equals 5, and P equals 2. Okay, and then here are the last two equations for number 3, or excuse me, the last two word problems. So for number 3, you were given information about the perimeter and 2 different side lengths. Okay, so the perimeter gives you this equation here. So adding the sides together, L plus N would be 65. And then the other 2 equations come from the sides of the triangle. And you get L equals 10, M equals 30, and N equals 25 for your solutions. Okay, the next problem was talking about ordering food, and there was 3 different orders with that all dealt with pizza, soda, and salad. So I defined my variables in that way. And then these 3 equations come from the 3 orders. Okay, in order to solve these, you have to combine 2 at a time and get rid of one of the variables. Okay, so I would probably try to eliminate the P, and you would end up with an equation in D and S, and then another equation in D and S, and solve that for each of those variables. You could also eliminate the D first or the S. Okay, it really doesn't matter. No matter which way you approach the problem, you'll end up with P equals $5, D equals $1, and S equals $3. Okay, so those are the prices of each of those items. All right, and that's all that we did today. Thank you for watching the video, and I will see you tomorrow.